The Supreme Court is due to make a decision pretty soon, sir, on segregation in the schools. Now, how do you Georgians think that decision is going to go?
If they follow the law, as all lawyers understand it, they will uphold the present method, which is separate but equal schools, and each state themselves may determine whether they want to maintain and preserve segregation or whether they want to change it.
Our parents raised us to live in a two-system society. Okay, we realized that there were certain things we couldn't do. There were certain things we could do.
Certain places you didn't go and certain things that you didn't do because you knew what the consequences would be along racial lines.
Growing up in a segregated society, you didn't feel a lot of things. You didn't see a lot of things. You didn't experience a lot of things.
Mama and Daddy did their best, their level best to shield us from as much of that as they could.
You know, you realize what they would call your place. And we didn't like it. But they taught us how to work around it.
We grew up from early childhood, knowing what the rules and regulations were and how to keep yourself out of trouble.
As a matter of fact, the old saying, you knew your position and that's where you were able to stay in order to keep down confusion.
And that was obviously for our protection.
If you were going downtown with Mama, and Mama would give you that talk, don't touch nothing, don't even brush up against anything. And every black kid got that talk, that lecture.
Young kids would pretty much rent out the store. They didn't let us go in the stores if we didn't go in there with the grown up. And they did not let us in a lot of the stores downtown.
And there were other places that kind of you could go in, but folks would watch you as if you was trying to steal something.
I lived in an integrated neighborhood. There were 7 families right off of East Hill. In there, we didn't have too much trouble at first, as long as you stayed in that area, you're there. But now when you went over on the other side of on Magnolia, well, you got dog six on you. You got, the N-word called, and it was just, this was in early 60s, so it was real rough during that time.
Public facilities like the bus station, where there was segregation there. There's the white waiting room, black waiting room.
Doctor's offices, they were segregated.
It was very much prevalent downtown Valdosta. You had the separate water fountains.
Or you couldn't use the water fountains.
I was always curious about those water fountains, because we had the little skinny water fountain that was, was cracked or whatever, and they had this really nice big water fountain. And I'm like, it must taste better than our water. So I kind of looked around, and then I ran over there and I turned it, and it was cold. That was the difference. It was cold water.
You had the areas inside of Crest where they served food that you couldn't go in there and buy food, and it wasn't only Crest, it was Burger King, Dairy Queen.
Even the Dairy Queen had separate facilities for the white and the black.
If you went to buy something at a white restaurant, you would have to go to an outside window.
And you had restaurants that said color only, you go in the back door. And the whites go in the front door. Now you eat the same food, and you got black cooks. For all that you weren't doing was sitting in their in the part where they were. They had air conditioning in their section, and we had a big fan.
Quarries or something like that, we couldn't eat there, or if we did, the area was segregated.
Man, the hitching post was popular back in the day. My buddies worked there, but they couldn't eat there.
Even in the theaters, you had to sit upstairs. from them. You had a different, separate entrance.
The Doster Theater, and you were able to go there, but it was segregated. You were upstairs, and it was nasty. It was not kept.
The courthouse, you go around that's the one side, the white restrooms and things. You go around the bottom, the black restrooms, and it had on there color only, white only.
You had a drive-in theater, but you couldn't go. You had to park on the side of the road in order to view the screen and not hear the words being spoken.
That was the life it was. It was a lot of segregation going on and a lot of violence with, put in Valdosta. It really was,
Like where we lived, we called it Ray's Alley. And you didn't see too many white people there unless they were bringing the maid home or picking up the maid or whatever. But white men would ride up and down that street sometimes. And if they saw you, they would stop and say nasty things to you. That kind of thing.
When I was growing up in the 40s, at least at 6, no later than 7 o'clock, you had to be in.
Walking downtown or walking from home from the football game, I've been to the car, somebody threw a monkey wrench out the back of the car, hit me in the back. They pull you up to the car and spit in your face.
Maybe somebody might be riding or you walking, somebody might scream out the N-word, what are you doing over here, or something like that.
Color white guys would ride in the neighborhood and do all that kind of stuff to you. Catch one of you down there and it beat the mess out you.
You heard stories, finding, I don't know if you ever heard of Mud Swamp, finding black women in Mud Swamp, that kind of thing. But you never knew if it was true or not. It was just rumors.
We mostly didn't go anywhere by ourselves. We were always either with classmates or our siblings. And like you said, we knew when to be back.
Yeah, we knew the boundary of that line. And I remember, I didn't understand it at the time, but it was a cross burning in our front yard. I remember that as a little boy. And my daddy came home and put it out. And we didn't know what it was. We just stayed in the house. Said, who want to burn a cross in our yard? But then when I learned more about it, I was told it was from the Ku Klux Klan.
I remember a friend of my daddy, they brought a cross out on State Mill Highway in front of his door. And the next day, while his daughter was getting on the bus at that time, they killed her.
You could be walking the streets and white police officers would stop and just harass you at whim.
The police officers, if Johnson was on his motorcycle, you were harassed. If you had a car that was not well kept, you were harassed. But you couldn't afford to do anything any better.
We were actually afraid. As children, as kids, we were actually afraid of white police.
I had the police stop me in the middle of the day. Come here. What you doing over here? Well, you got some just walking out here looking at the house. You don't have no, you don't supposed to be over here.
And I lived on the street, back North Street. I told my wife Francis. And for years, all right, the paved part of the street ended where the last house that the residents were. And from that point on, it was dirt. Valdosta, Fort Valdosta. Many of your streets in the black neighborhood were free, and it was based on race.
But the thing that I try to stress to young people now is the fact that we were in a position that that was the way of life.
We accepted it because that's the way it was. We didn't know any different, at the time.
And with the laws and the way things were set up, we didn't have too much of a chance because most of our parents were not highly educated, and they didn't know because this is what they came up from. They was doing the best with what they knew.
You know, when you live in a certain way, you don't realize that things that you're not around these things every day, so you don't know what you're missing. So we just made do.
And so this is why they pushed us a lot to get educated. They knew there had to be a better life for us. So this is why they pushed us to get educated.